The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Cold War, 1950s. At the time, numerous secret experiments were performed in both US and USSR camps. Among them, there were shocking and bizarre contents that would be difficult to reveal to the public. One of them was the Kali Project, in which they tried to transplant the head of a dog onto a machine, thus turning it into a bio-robot. Russian military columnist Ilya Polonsky argued that the project was not just a simple animal experiment, but part of a national project to turn humans into bio-robots or mechanical humans, in preparation for nuclear war. Living in a tinderbox situation, no one knew when the nuclear war would break out. The Soviet government spurred the development of nuclear weapons, while also performing a top-secret research to replace their soldiers' bodies with that of bio-robots. They needed soldiers who would not get hurt nor die, even if they were involved in a nuclear war. According to the experiment plan released 60 years later through a Russian military media, Top War, the Kali Project began in 1958, 5 years after Joseph Stalin's death. The Central Committee of the Communist Party of the USSR gathered the best medical staff, biologists, and engineers at the time to form a research team, before assigning them their first task. It was none other than transplanting a dog's head onto a life support system. The plan was to do safety testing on animals before actually doing it to humans. Although it did seem like an impossible task and no one could guarantee its success, the research team was confident. This was because the team was led by Vladimir Demikov, a genius surgeon representing the USSR. As a surgeon and scientist, Demikov already had a history of successfully transplanting a small dog's head onto a large shepherd dog's body in 1954. He created a two-headed dog by suturing the small dog's head to the shepherd dog's lower neck circulatory system and spine. The two heads attached to one body would simultaneously growl when threatened. When someone pet them, they would lick the person's hands together. They would drink milk when thirsty. The smaller one would stick its tongue out and pant when it was hot. At the time, Demikov managed to reduce the need for artificial organs by performing experiments. In order to continue his research, he needed unlimited research funds and experimental subjects. Of course, given the situation, a biological experiment project with national support was a sweet, sweet deal that he could not reject. The final goal of the research? Transplanting a human's head onto a life support system. And the fact that human testing is scheduled were the factors that stoked his ambitions. The team chose a border collie as the experimental subject and proceeded to name the project Kali. The main reason was because the brain of a border collie is well developed enough, to the point where they are called genius dogs. Today, there is only a limited number of project-related information that can be confirmed. Since the keyword Kali Project is subject to extensive censorship, there is no data on how the experiment progressed. Even to this day, only a small fraction of Russian media reported information related to the project, and only fragmentary data was revealed. In Russia, you may become a subject of investigation by simply exposing or describing the project to the public. However, it is the duty and reason for being of the media to publicize the existence of the project. Despite the details being difficult to understand for many reasons, a report by Russian neuroscientist Dr. Mikhail Lebedev, who attended the 1963 State Council organized by the Central Committee of the Communist Party and the Security Council of the USSR, can help us infer how far the project had progressed. Here are the results of the research, as well as future plans regarding the dog-headed bio-robot as presented by Lebedev. After removing the dog's head from its body, they succeeded in transplanting it onto a life support system with a blood circulation pump without damaging the spine, spinal cord, and cranial nerves. Life support systems are currently being developed in the form of mechanical suits. The final completed form will be similar to a robot with a dog's head. Based on his presentation, it is estimated that the Kali project had been going smoothly for around 5 years. Not only did they succeed in transplanting a dog's head onto a machine, but they also developed the life support system, which looked like a simple medical device, into a human-shaped bio-robot with arms and legs in the early days of research. On top of that, the performance of the bio-robot was amazing. After a short time, a special storm suit was developed. In fact, it was a mechanical robot controlled by a radio remote control. It could be managed both by the operator and the dog itself, connected via an automatic machine for saving life. At the same time, the dog was run by a specially trained specialist who gave the dog voice commands through a loudspeaker installed in the storm suit. The first tests of the suit were carried out at the site in Albino. After successful tests, special control modules for the suit, including titanium power levers, were made at a special factory. The body of the robot itself was made of armored alloy steel. The main task was to combine the low weight, speed, and mobility of the robot with its strength. The batteries used were nuclear batteries that lasted for 5 years and were developed for the needs of Soviet cosmonauts. Because of this battery, The level of radiation was very high inside the body, so the experimental dogs were changed as a consumable, one after another. The USSR leadership was very satisfied with the research results, thus promising full investment and support for the team's following research. As for the research goal, they emphasized developing a life-saving robot to rescue the injured and prolong their lives during war. Although it is uncertain whether the real intention was to develop life-saving robots or weapons of mass destruction, attempts to commercialize biorobots as ammunition slowly progressed. Since then, the robots have been called storm suits. Several USSR military institutions were supplied with a few of the prototypes that had gone through several stages of the performance test. Now, if we look at the leaked photo of the first field test in December 1968, we can see that people who appeared to be military officers are repairing the storm suit. The soldier sitting in front of the storm suit is holding a device that is presumed to be a remote control. However, since the top part of the photo was cut, we cannot confirm whether the transplanted head belonged to a dog or a human, just like what they originally planned. Despite the huge investment and support, the Kali project began to stray from its goals without further progress in the 1970s. They may have succeeded in keeping the transplanted head alive, but it was impossible to maintain the consciousness of the experimental subject, and accidents often occurred beyond their control. Above all else, the USSR and the US's interests at the time had shifted to the space race. Competing against each other, the two countries were too busy launching satellites and building moon-bound rockets. After the research support was eventually cut off, key personnel such as Demikov left the team one after another, leaving only a few lines of records to local media and publishing companies. The dogs gathered by the USSR for war robot research purposes are being used for a new space exploration project. Kudrovska's descendants have made a sublime sacrifice for the sake of humans. Some argued that all of this is nothing but an unsubstantial urban legend. However, it is also true that there are many suspicious parts that can be dismissed as fake. During the Cold War, the USSR may have planned and implemented an ambitious project to create mechanical humans, in hopes of subduing the US, thus gaining supremacy over the world. Now, if World War III had ever broken out, would the US Army have encountered a dog-headed robot in the battlefield? This has been Strange Night.